Of course, moms across the country now are taking sides, reacting to the controversial comment by Democratic strategist Hilary Rosen, who said Ann Romney hasn't worked a day in her life. It has sparked quite a debate over some surprisingly familiar issues.
Maria Smith is a suburban Atlanta stay-at-home mom of 3, with a 4th on the way. She considers herself a liberal, but was shocked when she heard Hilary Rosen's comments.
I felt offended. I felt mad. I felt like this is someone who I thought was on my side, but actually really didn't understand me.
She discovered she wasn't the only one with a visceral reaction.
I have talked about this today at preschool pickup. I was at the playground talking with some moms about it, and I was kind of surprised at how many people have picked up on the story.
A story that started out as a political discussion has revived a very different conversation, decades old, hitting an apparently still raw nerve about a woman's place.
Lesley Jane Seymour has worked at women's magazines for 25 years and is now editor of More.
Welcome to the Mommy Wars version 2012. I bet you that every single woman on the train, my train home tonight, is going to be talking about this. Somebody threw one little match in the pile there, and the whole thing ignited.
That's clear from impassioned posts on the comments sections of news and women's websites like our own iVillage.
Women are not a monolithic interest group.
Kelly Wallace is chief correspondent for iVillage and a working mom.
This debate totally resonates. I think about this issue all the time because I, of course, feel conflict like I think so many other women. When I hear my little ones running around the playground and I'm not there, I think, wow, I wish I could be there. It doesn't get any more emotional, I think, than the Mommy Wars.
On the Huffington Post, a columnist suggests that for the election, the Hilary Rosen kerfuffle means absolutely nothing. But for women, it's giving new life to an unsettled and unsettling debate.
And this has sparked so much passion. I wanted to bring in 2 of the working moms in that story, Kelly Wallace and Lesley Jane Seymour. Were women talking about it on the train last night, Lesley?
All the way home, everything. Everybody's on fire about this. You know, you can't win on either side. If you're at home, if you're working, you feel guilty, you feel you're shortchanging somebody. I've worked and I've been at home, and neither one makes you feel like you've made the perfect choice.
You know, my excuse is going to be that I'm not a mom, but I was so wrong on this because in our meeting yesterday, I said, we fought this 20, 30 years ago.
No.
And
no. We were.
It's not dead.
No, we were actually talking about this in the green room, right? In terms of talking about this 10, 15 years ago. No, because it is so raw. And that is it, because I think women on both sides feel it. We feel our own conflicts. We feel our own insecurities. And as much as we want to say that the judging doesn't go on, unfortunately it does. And I think what really sort of just struck this core here is that question of never worked, right, a day in her life.
Yes.
And we would all agree, working moms or moms who are at home, that, you know, working and raising kids is one hell of a job.
If you've done it, I'm telling you, I know a lot of people can't wait to get to work, to get away from the homework at home, which is
Leslie,
really
you
a lot
told me an
tougher.
amazing story yesterday about going to drop your child off at, was it daycare, and what another mother said to you?
No, these are friends in my, and I love them all dearly, but we were having this conversation when I was the editor-in-chief of Redbook. This is 15 years ago. I did the original Mommy Wars story, and they actually said to me, I decided to stay home and quit my job because I love my children. And
obviously you didn't love your children.
I must not love my children. And, it was a terrible thing on that side, too. So the barbs keep going. But what I find interesting is we're all sitting here saying, isn't it over? I think what happened is it went underground. And what's happened is the Twitter sphere and all of that anonymity, we're allowed to say what we really feel. It was never resolved.
Right.
And that's what you're seeing now.
And this was sort of, as you said in the piece, you threw a match and boom.
Yeah, yes. I do think, of course, with social media, Twitter, you watch the story, too, build on Twitter and Facebook, on iVillage. And I do think that we got away from a little bit was the core, of the argument, which was that what Hilary Rosen had said, and she didn't say well, obviously, but
she wants to go home and pull the covers over her head. I hope she's at home
because we did hear a lot of women actually at iVillage who were talking about just, the issue of which candidate can be more in touch with the economic struggles that working men and women are facing every day. But we kind of got away from that because of this issue. And again, I think social media in part played a big role in that.
But it's not a real issue. And that's the thing that I think it may not be a campaign issue, but to say it's not an issue for women to still work out, I don't think is right. I think it's a real issue for us.
And obviously, this is not the first time this has come up. Let me go back 20 years. I can't believe it's been 20 years and play something for you.
Ooh.
I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had teas, but what I decided to do was to fulfill my profession, which I entered before my husband was in public life.
The first match.
Well, this is what we heard. We heard women saying this yesterday, saying this reminds me exactly of the criticism that Hillary Clinton, again, she also many years later would say, I wish I didn't say it exactly like that, because she didn't mean to be demeaning of women who made that choice. And I think, I have to say personally, Leslie, I don't know how you felt, but I didn't have as much respect, I will be honest, for women who chose to stay at home before I had kids. I saw these women who were leaders in the workforce, had these degrees, had all this, power, and I felt like they were leaving it. I feel so differently now with kids. I think it is a choice. We want to fight for the power of to have the choice. We want to respect the choices that every woman makes. And I don't think it's fair for us to think that just because a woman made one choice, she can't really connect with some of the decisions and choices that other women made. I think that's what was at the core of this.
Well, it's a tough choice in either case, because if you're giving up something big, which is economic power, independence, to be home and do something that is hugely important. I mean, to change children's lives, to direct their lives, but we're not being paid for it. So maybe the whole solution is to get out and say, let's make it work at home, and let's give them 401k,
all these comments,
retirement.
I've seen the comments piling up. I want to read something that was on our Facebook. Quote, I feel Hilary Rosen comments were just this. Ann Romney didn't really have to make a choice because her husband made enough money that she didn't have to say to herself, if I don't go to work, there will be no food or less food on the table. Where will the money come from to pay for the house, heating bills, children's clothes, many more everyday expenses? That is what Hilary Rosen was saying, not anything against stay-at-home moms, because let's face it, most moms that work would like to have the choice of staying home, but didn't have the choice.
She was talking about an economic issue.
Yeah.
She really meant to say that rather than not having it.
Because I do think we were talking internally a little bit too, because we felt like in a way this is, you said, the Mommy Wars 2012. It's sort of the new evolution of the Mommy Wars, which is that so many women who are working, as this woman said, would rather stay at home, would want the choice to stay at home, but because of the economic climate, they can't.
But don't we have to, as women, stop judging other women for the choices they made?
You know what? And that is the real name of the game that's out there right now. And we see it, I see it as a magazine editor for more, in aging, in choices, in dress. And we are so completely judged. And we've made a business out of being judgmental on each other.
We were talking about this earlier, too. I think the judging also comes from the conflict, right?
Yes.
We all feel conflict. You feel conflict. All women, men, too. But I think what happens is we all have our own internal conflict about the decisions we make or the choices we can or can't make. And sometimes the reaction to that is to judge others.
And I think ultimately the bigger question is going to be, is this going to spark a serious political discussion about these issues, about what we can do for working women in America, and ultimately, will it maybe propel some women to get involved in politics? Because until we have more women in state legislatures, until we have more women in governors' houses and so on.
Well, go ahead.
No, I think that would be the hopeful thing out of it. My fear is that this is just that overnight conflagration and then it goes away and we get onto something else. But that would be a wonderful thing.
I know. Because I was thinking about it yesterday. I was thinking this keeps happening, right? We keep debating women's issues. How great, right? If we had two presidential candidates who are women debating those issues.
Right. And getting more women into power. I mean, as we know, if you get more women into business, you get them into government, things go better overall for everybody.
Leslie, Kelly, what a great conversation, and it is continuing. Apparently all across America. Thank you so much for coming in.
Chris.
And for today's Tweet of the Day, we